Hello, I'm Wendy Wilson, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Realizing Potential. Today I have with me in the studio just an amazing woman. I brag about her all the time. Just has contributed to the arts in such a unique and very engaging and enlightening way, and just transformed, in my opinion, Southwest Georgia in so many respects. So we're very fortunate to have her at Albany State University. She is none other than Dr. Elizabeth Delancy.
Hi.
How are you?
Well, thank you for having me.
Good. One of my partners in crime. I think everybody knows that.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, I was, and it's said with much admiration, but I also tease you because you go from planning and executing something just so breathtaking and phenomenal. We just experienced Essentially Nina. Essentially. I don't know why I want to, and we had this conversation before. I keep wanting to add the descriptor simply, and there was nothing simple about her. Essentially Nina, and that production was just it was absolutely breathtaking.
Thank you.
I was honored to be a part of it, and then just to experience it. And so now, see, I would kick back for a long time after that, like I just did, Essentially Nina. So get back with me in about a year or so, but you never do that. So you go from one right into the next, and so that's what we're here to talk about.
Right.
Yes, but let's talk briefly about, before we go into that upcoming production and how you're preparing for that and how the community can be involved in this one. Right. Let's just talk about how long you've been, once Darton State College, now Albany State University, and what you've done as it relates to the dance program.
Well, just starting at the beginning, anytime you go into any place new, and then the person who, when I'm 100 will come behind me, they will make changes, But, I wanted to revamp the curriculum to try and align it a little bit more, because at that time when we were at Darton, it was a 2-year program. And so it was about preparing the students to transfer successfully to dance programs within Georgia or wherever they wanted to go.
Sure.
So now the goal is to take that 2-year, what was a 2-year AA program, and make it a minor that will work within the 4-year framework.
Excellent.
So that's one of the summer projects that I'll be working with Dr. Marcia Hood on, and I think that will be really exciting because there are at least 2 Georgia programs that I know of that have minors. So I have something in which I can model. But having an HBCU that has a dance minor, I think, is really great, and particularly in this region.
Sure.
And then you look on this campus, the East Campus in particular, you have so many students who love to dance.
Yes.
Dance is just a part of a lot of who we are, even in the churches and things like that. So, excuse me. So, just working on expanding the program and excuse me, and finding a way to reach the students, let them know that, okay, we do have dance curriculum classes, because a lot of the students, they dance for joy, and they have a little bit of training, and this is the goal is to give them a little bit more, and, show them that, well, it doesn't just have to be your love and the thing that you do in the aerobic studio. You can have a career. You really can. And, don't let the fact that they're cutting NEA funds and blah, 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 because we have survived and we will continue to survive because we need the arts. The arts are who we are.
Certainly.
Certainly. And they express. I was looking, actually, I know you asked me about what I'm doing in the program, but I just have to share with you. I was watching a video on Facebook, and these dancers were responding to crazy statements made by different people in the presidential, or was it the president? Things that he says that, have offended so many groups. And you have people representing those particular groups and dancing a response.
Wow.
And it's just tremendous.
Yes.
And, we do have to make the lemonade. I mean, let's be real, and anybody that knows me, they understand my political leanings, and I'm not ashamed of it, and this is probably not the venue to talk about it, but it is what it is.
Sure.
And then, because that comes out in my art,
It does.
You know,
yes.
It's very clear. You know, the issues that concern me as a Black woman, a Black person in the United States, it comes out. And so, you know, anytime I see artists responding in a similar way, I have to take note and say yes. Sure. And I knew that coming into this new administration that we would have all of us, visual artists, music artists, singers, you know, writers would have so much material. Yes. And so while, you know, things may not be ideal and we have to watch what's going on in the Senate and the House and in the White House, there is so much to which we can respond.
Indeed.
You know, and then that's a way of crossing the line, because then we have students and young people who may not watch C-SPAN like I do with popcorn, because my gosh, you know,
of that.
but they will see it and receive it through the dance or the visual arts or the music. And so, you know, I believe that it is our responsibility to tell what's going on, you know, and be that landmarker in time. And so, well, you know, so back to ASU and the dance program, letting the students know that this is an opportunity. You know, you don't just have to, and I don't mean to say just, you don't have to limit yourself to one type of dancing, but there's an opportunity to dance in a proscenium space and to do site-specific works and protest works and things like that, you know, and have a comment about things in the world, you know. So so that's where I'm going with that. And then also always trying to find a way to engage the community, you know, because the dance education, it is on the landscape, but there's not a fit for necessarily everybody, and so sometimes I fill that gap. Sure. And so, you know, and I'm also always thinking about recruitment. So if I can work with a junior high student in my community dance education program, or the high school student, maybe they will consider ASU and say, oh, well, you know, I can continue my dance studies, and I can, you know, get a degree while I'm at it. Right. You know, and so that's important.
We've learned so many lessons throughout higher education, probably within the last, my identifying time typically has always been that 2006, 2008, when the economy started shifting drastically. Right. And the higher ed arena had a rebirth, if you will, in many instances, because oftentimes, and this is just has been demonstrated throughout history. So when the economy tanks, people tend to go back to school, okay?
Absolutely.
And so we saw a huge increase in terms of student population. And then it leveled off. And then we had difficulty trying to shift and adjust to that. But one of the lessons that I know in terms of that shift that I witnessed and had a role to play in as it relates to both of the institutions at the time, Dart and Albany State, is the importance of being intentional. So you just can't expect that the students are going to show up at your door. Right. Huge lessons in terms of enrollment, management. Right. And you have to go after them. You have to meet them where they are. And so you've certainly done that. Yeah, you're great at that, and you understand, particularly where we are dealing with still a lot of first-generation students. Sure. And so the exposure may not have been there for a myriad of reasons. Not that the parents didn't want to, or whomever the guardian, the caregiver, or the person that was serving and leading and developing that child or that individual. Not that they didn't want to; they're just dealing with a whole lot of other things in life. Right. So what I love about what you do is that you open the doors to of potential opportunities, and you do it through the form of the arts. So I'm always awestruck, not so much by certainly the performance and the production, but I and our other partner in crime, dear friend Pat and I, we always talk about how we just enjoy seeing the people when they arrive at your performance, and certainly when they leave. Their chests, you know, stick out a little bit more. You can just see just the awe and wonder in their faces, because they have been exposed and introduced to something that in many respects, because of, you know, economic circumstances, financial circumstances, they may not be exposed to. So where you and I, you know, drive to Tallahassee, take a flight to New York, take a flight to Chicago to be exposed to the arts, whether it be a play or a dance performance, or go to DC and be exposed to the something at the Kennedy Center. That may be so foreign to them.
Right.
But what you do is bring something certainly at a minimum on an equal platform or level, and many times exceed that to Southwest Georgia.
Thank you.
Yeah. So that, and I know that was you're like, okay, you finally got it out. But that was a point that I want to make, is that you are one of the higher ed practitioners that I have seen. You get the importance and the value of, I need to bring it to you. I need to bring you to it, and let this be a medium, if you will, to introduce what the world has to offer you.
Right. That was my mission, and I remember saying that when I was hired, when we were Darton State College, because the reality is, in any time you're in an institution, you're going to have a budget, and then of course, in this region, of course, the budgets would be a little bit tighter than versus when I was in Miami, for example.
Sure.
And so one thing that I promised my students was that I may not be able to take you everywhere, but I can really try to bring the world to you.
I love that.
And and it's easier now, because certainly with Facebook being internationally connected, and wow, I have friends who have had international experiences. And fortunately for me, I have a lot of them that I can put my hands on that are in the Atlanta or Florida area, and who will come sometimes at the friend discount.
Yeah.
So and it just gives them an opportunity, my friends, to get an opportunity to pour in.
Yes.
Because the students are so appreciative.
Sure.
And then the students get to see, oh, okay, well, first of all, Dr. D, you're not lying. You really do need to, you do know what you're talking about. And it's everything about it does take a village. And so I'm happy to invite my friends and sharing in the education of my students, and then the community dance ed, and then hopefully, the ripple expands. I'm really excited. I got a chance to work with a student through community dance ed. She's a Move On When Ready student.
Excellent.
She attended Essentially Nina, and I had spoken with her mother actually maybe a year prior, and she was like, I have a daughter, and nothing really came of it, because I know life happens.
Sure.
But this young woman had attended Essentially Nina with her grandmother. And then she was like, oh, I want to do it. And she was telling me about it, and I had the information on the table. I'm like, oh, we'll pick up a form and fill it out. And so, I had her for, I think, about 2 sessions during the summer term.
Wow.
And she will be back with me in the fall.
Excellent.
So I'm very excited, because then she also decided to study with me rather than participate in field dancing, I think they call it, when you dance with the band. And because, well, certainly my prices are competitive. That's expensive to do the field dancing. You have the costumes and all of those kinds of things. And whereas with me, you pay your tuition, which is nominal.
Right.
It really is. And that's intentional. But, I have the costumes because, if you're in a dance company, you don't buy your own costumes.
Right.
That's not what you do. The company provides them, and you take care of them, and you return them, and you learn personal responsibility as it relates to somebody else's property. But you don't own it.
Right.
So that's part of the experience.
I was about to say, the exposure occurs on so many different levels.
Right.
And so you are, again, as you always do, you are already in your mind planning, and the execution process is for the next. And so many of the conversations that we have about you, one of them, the common theme is, what will Dr. Delancy do next? And how is she going to be? I have to liken you to Michael Jackson. You remember Michael Jackson when he would come out with Thriller and Bad? You're like, so how are you going to top that?
Oh my gosh, he always did that, didn't
he? You're my...
Well, that is a tremendous compliment.
You're the personification. I do, don't we all? Yeah. So you're the personification of that. You do that all the time. So what is this next that you're going to do? What's your next thriller?
Oh, well, I just have to share with you the process, just if you would bear with
Sure.
me. You know, after Essentially Nina, and I was really pleased with it, but, you know, my students and I had lived with that material for a while.
Okay.
You know, we, in different forms and, you know, me creating and whatnot. And so when we got to April, and we enjoyed the roses. And, you know, I know that there are some people in jest or in seriousness who are asking for encores. And I'm like, well, you know, that's a little bit difficult to do in the setting, because when you're in a college setting, there's so much ebb and flow with your personnel, you know.
Indeed.
You know, because even though I have a dance company, it is shaped by my dance program, and my dance program is shaped by the students. And if they don't come back, I may not be able to offer that solo, because when things are created, I have the dancers that I have, my students, in mind, you know, so that they get the most out of the experience.
Certainly.
So it's not in the same way as a dance company out there in the world, where it's like, okay, well, I lost a redhead, so, and that's 6 feet, so let me, well, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, oh, you come.
Right.
You know, it's a little bit different. So, you know, after Essentially Nina, I was like, yes, I'm happy. I'm very proud of what we were able to accomplish. And yes, on to the next thing. So then I was thinking about the different artists and, you know, like, well, you know, do I want to do another kind of thing like that and feature a music artist who touched my life in a personal way and others? And I was thinking, well, you know, Femi Anderson does a lot of purple parties with Prince. And I'm like, well, you know, maybe we could partner doing something like that. But then I started listening to his music. Now, a lot of his music, I mean, when I listen to it, I think about what I was doing and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And I remember, you know, being in the dressing room at Stage 7 and when Purple Rain came out, and this one young woman who was in high school, she was a junior, and she was gorgeous. And she was saying, I'm going to Purple Rain for the 7th time with a different guy. And they don't know, you know, and I remember that story, you know, every time, you know, particular songs come up. And, you know, but it, you know, I was also thinking, though, now this may not be popular, but when I think about Prince as a person, in his videos, I was never really represented. I had a friend who was my complexion, and she was in like 1 or 2 of his videos. It's like, you know, I think it was Cream or something like that. But other than that, he always chose women that looked other.
Right. More of the Eurocentric.
Right, you know, and that they could represent Hispanic or whatever. You know, but, you know, I was never present, you know. And so, and that is important to me, because I always want to impart to the young women today, they are beautiful. And I want them to appreciate everything about them.
Absolutely.
You know, that you don't have to buy bags of hair to brush out of your face.
Right.
To be beautiful. You know, and so, you know, so I was looking at all of those things, and then listening to his music and thinking of the kind of dancers I would need to pull off something. And while for me, I mean, and I know I danced to some of his music when I was younger, but, you know, I was a different type of dancer than the ones that I tend to get. So I'm like, I don't know. So just looking at all of those things and then listening for a message that I could hold on to, particularly for today, I had to put him aside.
Okay.
So then I was like, well, Ray Charles. I'm like, well, he's from this area. But then when I was listening to his music, and while he did a lot on the forefront, you know, like only performing if the audience was integrated, and my father saw him several times in performance, and he talks about that whole thing. And of course, most of us have seen Ray, and then, you know, the monument, and I even took pictures and trying to get inspiration and have his anthology. But his music places us in a particular time.
Yes.
Versus like with Nina Simone, her music transcended.
Oh, sure.
You know, and so while I love his music, so, and I was like, yeah, I just set that aside. And then I was thinking, well, my goodness, you know, and so I was like, well, let me just leave it alone. And so I'm in church, and I'm running the screen, you know, the PowerPoint screen, you know, and the praise and worship leader began to sing, "Oh, bless the Lord, oh my soul." And then it just hit me. And then there was something about Psalm 24, and that was my mother's favorite psalm. And I was like, I think this is the direction we need to go.
The pieces of the puzzle started falling into place. Yeah.
Because now more than if you are a believer or whatever you believe, we need to tap in.
Sure.
And so, and I'm like, gosh, I'm getting calluses on my knees, need knee pads. I mean, you know what I'm saying. And so I'm like, well, gosh. And then even this is an opportunity for me, and this may not be popular to say, but I'm going to say it because that's who I am, to also comment about the church. This is a particularly interesting region for me. A lot of Bible believers. The doctrine of love, though, sometimes seems secondary.
So profound.
Because, as a dancer, I've encountered many people. And in my studio must be a safe place for everybody.
Yes.
I don't care if you have schizophrenia, and I've had a student with schizophrenia. I don't care how you self-identify, lesbian, gay, queer, whatever.
Right.
Because my job is to teach the person who is before me and to be the best me that I can be.
Sure. Whether
I'm yelling or not.
Right.
Because, and like I always say, I always yell with love, But I think that whatever your doctrine, whatever your beliefs, whatever your fundamentals are, we have to remember the 2 commandments. And they were love-based. Every Sunday we do the summary of the Decalogue, and it's like, on those 2 commandments I hang everything.
Right.
And it's like, love, and I'm going to say them out of order because you have to love yourself.
Yes.
And then you have to love your neighbor. And I say it out of order, even though they were presented differently, because if you don't love yourself, you cannot love anybody else in a quality way. And so just thinking about that and the importance of how important it is for us to show love for one another.
Indeed.
Because we're being attacked as people, right, left, and center, within our respective groups. And so I was like, wow, I want to comment on that in some kind of way, even if it's not a finger pointing thing, but a comment in a way of bringing us together.
Sure.
And so, so my goal is to have an audition on September 7th.
Excellent.
And invite as many dance ministry groups that will come. And now I'll say, let me put a caveat on this though. Not the babies.
Sure.
Because
so
I
there's
don't.
A time, right.
Yes, I need to be able to work with people that have a capacity.
Yes.
Because, it's not a recital and it's not about who's cute. I that's just not where I am. Okay. So, people with children.
So I want to cut you off because I want us to be clear in terms of that. So because my interpretation of what the babies are.
Okay.
So I need you to give, let's give the
some
audience.
Ages.
Right. There you go.
Right. So what I'm generally looking for is, I'm going to say middle school.
Okay.
And up.
Sure.
Middle school and up. Now, I never make anything hard and fast because sometimes you'll have somebody who's younger who is capable.
Acumen and skill. Okay.
Right. But given the time of day, the evening, the evening time.
And the training that will be required, right?
Right. But particularly the time. I mean, babies, young, elementary, they need to be in bed by no later than 8, and really middle school too. That's kind of pushing
developmental years, yeah.
And so, I'm thinking about that, those who have a later bedtime, okay, who won't melt down because I say one more time, so practicality.
Okay.
And then also groups that would be willing to let me work with their choreography because it has to be a cohesive theme.
Okay.
So, and it could be groups, it can be individuals, and as far as like the audition, they don't need to wear their ministry garments. They can wear, their sweat pants or whatever, because it's come neat, of course, but I just want to see them present something that they would do in ministry. Now I've danced in church ministries, and it's a very particular thing. It's very frontal, the movement doesn't exit and enter generally and things like that. So that's something that they would have to be open to me doing something to make it more appropriate for a proscenium space. But then, of course, keeping that worshipful flow.
Sure.
You know. So, but, you know, yeah, so that's what I would like to do, is I would like to bring as many dance ministries together, from Baptist to Pentecostal, all together in one place, because we always hear that Sunday is the most segregated time of the what is it, the week, but not just color. I mean, we go to our respective, you know, denominations, and there's not really a lot of mixing and mingling. Correct. And I would love to see the body come together.
Sure.
And so, if they are open, I would. That's the goal.
I think that you will have. I will be surprised if you tell me when the numbers were super small. I think they'll be small at all. I'm curious to see who will show up at the door.
Right.
And I'm hopeful and prayerful that they will come with the right frame of mind to be receptive. A lot of times, and I know you and I have discussed this before, that technique is important.
Sure.
Style and commitment. So it's not what you may, it's not so much what you've seen on the surface. And what I've certainly learned only through observation is dance is dominated by athleticism, if you will. You are indeed athletes. So there's so much that's required to that. So come with the expectation, even for the audition, to learn and to be introduced to things that, wow, I thought it was supposed to go this way, when in fact it should go the opposite way.
My goal is not to erase the flavor of the dance ministry. So, like, for example, if they present a piece, whatever the piece is, I definitely want to keep a lot of their choreography intact.
Okay.
You know, but it's just a matter of wrapping it, packaging it, and then refining it.
Okay.
You know, like, for example, even in my church, they have a youth dance ministry. And, for example, there's this one, you know, young man who, tall and, you know, has a lot of, and I'm going to say it this way, a lot of fans. Okay. But I was watching him from the back, and I noticed that his movement was like this, you know, but his arms were pinned. And this kid has very long arms. The first thing I would do with him, if I ever got an opportunity to work with him, was to show him how to extend his arms using his back, because, you know, this versus something like this, completely
different meanings, right?
You know, just, it's fuller.
Restrictive, right.
You know, and so those are the kinds of things that I hope to do when I'm working with the dance ministry, so that they can take what I do with them back to their places of ministry, as well as, you know, and, you know, as far as how everything's going to shape out, you know, well, that will reveal when I find out who I will be working with.
What you're working with.
But, you know, my goal is it will be an interchange. They will get something not just for the experience in April, but something that will hold them. And then, of course, in the preparation, the goal is to give them some dance training, you know, again, tools that they can use when they go back to their respective houses of worship. You know, so so September 7th, 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Where were the auditions?
The West Campus, or whatever we call it now, Gillionville West Campus. Yes, the old Darton campus. Yes, and the Cavalier Arena, the E building, and the dance studio.
Okay. 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
With then, once you identify who those performers will be, with the production to commence or take place in April.
Right. Right. Because I want to give us a lot of time.
Yes.
And then, you know, in my mind, I envision a good number of groups.
Okay.
And so, and the thing is, there has to be, and I do imagine, you know, at least 2 pieces where I bring all of the groups together. You know, there will be an opportunity for them to minister within their familiar frameworks, but I do see some pieces where they will all come together, and I want them to feel comfortable with one another. I want them to leave having made another family member, you know. So there are a lot of things in my mind that I hope to accomplish. I'm quite optimistic.
Well, you always are, and that's the thought pattern that I think really works successfully in life to ensure happiness. So you always display that and demonstrate that. So again, I remain excited, as I always am. I know this is going to be just remarkable. I'm just eagerly anticipating what it will look like on the end, the other end. You know, again, I'm the avid observer of the arts. You know, so I intentionally engage with individuals like yourself because all I can do is admire it. I'm limited. I know where my skills and my gifts lie. So, you know, I either purchase it or it's in my home on the wall or hanging somewhere, or I go and indulge sitting in a seat and wish that I could get on stage and do that. So yes, September 7th.
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
E108, Building E.
Right,
Room
right.
108, the dance studio.
The dance studio.
Yes.
Okay, so we have a lot to look forward to, and then the final production in April. And I know that we'll show if they have any additional questions, right? And so I'm sure in the back of my mind, I'm like, so it's you're indeed opening it up to the community, but you will use some of the Albany State dancers, the students, and the production. Yes,
absolutely.
Good deal. Absolutely. And if I'm interested in this minor or taking some classes, what does that process look like? Is it too late to register to become a student at Albany State?
It is not. Registration is ongoing. In fact, there is a registration. New student orientations are happening in the summer.
Yes.
And my classes are open, and I'll have a graphic, showing the classes that will be open in the fall. I am always looking for students to edify and fill up their liberal arts studies with dance, because I find that dance really does underscore all of STEM.
Yes.
It's every aspect of it, which is why we need STEAM. We need to insert those arts into that model, because dance is physics, it's anatomy, it's math, it's engineering. I mean, the costume construction, engineering, it is science.
Yes.
It is all of those things wrapped up in art.
Very good.
So,
Good. Well, you certainly educate us internally, those that have an opportunity to engage with you on a regular, and then certainly the greater community. So continued success.
Thank you.
I know you will keep me up to date, and we will certainly do our part in terms of educating the community about this upcoming opportunity for them to be a part of what I know will be another remarkable performance.
Thank you.
Our very own Michael Jackson.
Thank you. You honor me greatly. Thank you.
It's always a pleasure having you on this show.
It's always a pleasure coming. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Viewers, thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Realizing Potential. I'm Wendy Wilson, and I will see you next time.